Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Stephen Brayton, author of the Mallory Peterson Mystery Series. The latest book in the series, Gamma, will be published later this year. Stephen, welcome to the podcast. Well, if someone hasn't yet heard about your Mallory Peterson Mysteries, how would you describe this series, and can you tell us about your forthcoming novel, Gamma?
It is about Mallory Peterson, who is a fourth-degree black belt in Taekwondo and a private investigator, and she solves most of her cases in the Des Moines area. Gamma is the fourth in the series. I have used the Greek letters for the titles of the stories, but I haven't gone in order. The first one is Alpha, the second is Beta, the third is Delta, and the fourth is Gamma. The fifth is Zeta, which will be published a couple months after Gamma. But Gamma is about it's a little bit of more of a lighthearted book with her running around Des Moines with a 5-year-old who stole a comic book that is technologically enhanced. And she has to figure out what all that is about and keep the child safe. In their journey, in their flight, they run into a trio of grunge punk rockers, two of whom are on a constant marijuana high and one who keeps flirting with her. So there's a lot of comedy and lightheartedness throughout this whole book.
Well, do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to writing the Mallory Peterson mystery novels?
I started my martial arts career back in 1991, and I was living in another town at the time, and I saw a sign that said 2 weeks free classes. So I went there and did my 2 weeks and never looked back, continued on, earned my black belt, and just kept moving up in rank. Several years later, the writing bug hit me again. And I thought, what a wonderful topic this would be, and what a wonderful character I could make having a martial artist and a private investigator. And I had thought about taking a character I had created some years before, who was a detective in the Quad Cities area. But then I got to go into all these tournaments, business seminars, classes, and I saw all these wonderful, beautiful women who were doing the sport. And I thought, no, my main character has to be a woman. So I made her basically me, only as a female, a lot better looking, a lot better martial artist, and a lot better instructor, but most of my same dislikes and likes.
That's great. Well, after the next two novels in the series are published, as you mentioned earlier, Gamma and Zeta, are you planning to write more novels about Mallory?
I have a couple of more outlined and am writing one at the moment. The next one I want to put out is called Omega. Now, normally Omega would be the last letter in the alphabet, but in this case, Omega refers to the end of a time period or the end of relationships. So that's where that comes in. And but I'm writing right now. I'm writing one tentatively titled Tau, which is I want to reference that in a way that shows a rebirth of life, a rebirth of the relationships, things like that. And then I have also started writing the following along after that, which is Theta, which is a gang of assassins are after Mallory. And I have a couple of more stories. I have one more story outlined and an idea about the 10th book. So it just continues.
Yep. So what was your writing journey that led you to writing and publishing your first novel?
Oh, wow. Well, I mentioned the fact that I was in martial arts and I had written a couple of stories. long time ago, I had right out of college. At my first job, I was the writing bug hit me, and I thought, well, I want to do some writing, and I wrote a fantasy story, and it didn't quite go anywhere, and I had kind of put it away for a while, and then, like I said, when I was starting martial arts, it hit me again. What really got me involved in learning writing and learning the craft of writing was about 4 or 5 years after I started writing the original Alpha. I joined a critique group in Des Moines. An author had come down to Oskaloosa to promote his book, and I was talking with him, and he said, "Oh, there's a critique group up at one of the bookstores up in Des Moines." So for years after that, I went. I attended each meeting, driving about an hour and a half each way every week. And I soon learned that my manuscript of 40,000 words was a whole bunch of crap. And because I didn't know the craft of writing, I didn't know the styles or character development or really voices, dialogue, and even the nitpicky stuff of grammar and punctuation. So throughout the years, I learned that. And I had sort of, when I figured out Alpha wasn't quite up to par, the second story, Beta, the idea had already hit me and I was already working on it. And so I really honed that. Didn't really get to do anything with it until later in about 2009, 2008, 2009. I was at a writer's conference, and I ran into a couple of agents and publishers and submitted my work. And it was originally published in 2000. The Beta was published in 2009. I immediately resurrected Alpha, brushed it off, started from page 1, kept the basic premise, added a couple of subplots, new characters, and it was published in 2011 with another publisher. Both of those publishers, unfortunately, closed, and I was stuck with my 2 books again, not knowing what to do with them. In 2016, I found another publisher, a local couple, and they have published the first 3 books and just moved on from that.
That's great. Well, what's your writing process when you're working on a novel? Are you someone who outlines the novel extensively, or do you just dive into the narrative and kind of see where the story takes you?
I get an idea, and I think about that idea for a little bit, and then I set it aside. And if the idea comes back and bugs me, then I will delve into it a little bit more and maybe create some scenes, think of some characters. And then I will write an outline. I do like outlines. They give me a direction to go. I keep the outlines fluid enough that if changes need to be made, I can do those. And then when I have the outline done, I grab a notebook or a legal pad and I start writing longhand. People ask me, why do you write your stories out instead of just typing them on a computer? Well, I say my answer is I can think faster than I can write. So as I'm writing, my brain is thinking about the next sentence, next scene, what I want to put in this. I can type faster than I think. So if I'm sitting here typing on word processing, I can type a sentence and then I have to stop and think about what the next sentence is. So by writing it and then typing it in, that becomes, the typing becomes actually my first edit.
Gotcha. Well, what writing advice would you offer for those who are working on their own stories and novels?
Don't quit your day jobs. I have to be honest. I hear so many stories of people who say, I've never written a book before. I sat down and wrote one and I turned it into a publisher and he published it first time and I sold 50,000 copies. Those are the rare and lucky ones. Uh, my advice to somebody who really has a desire to write a story, a memoir, whatever they want to write, is to write. There are so many writers, in quotes, who develop characters and have intricate character profiles, and they outline every sentence and every word, and every scene and every chapter. And they talk about all these cool ideas. I want to put this in the book, and I want to put this in the book. Okay, let me see chapter 1. Have you written anything? Have you sat down in front of your computer or taken up a notebook and pen and written anything? If you're going to be serious, I don't want to listen to you talk about your ideas. I want to listen to you read what you have written.
Hi, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I wanted to tell you about an app that can change how you plan parties and celebrations at your home. Drizzly. Drizzly is the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits, with delivery to your doorstep in under 60 minutes. Are you hosting a book club party and you need a couple of bottles of wine? Well, keep in mind Drizzly. Or do you and your friends make cocktails based on your favorite book characters or novels? If so, again, use Drizzly. That's DRIZLY.com. Drizzly is the #1 app for alcohol delivery. Again, that's Drizzly, DRIZLY.com. And right now, if you act, Drizzly is giving every new customer $5 off their first order. Just use the promo code FAST5 at checkout. Hey, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing Podcast. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. I have a company that I want to tell you about that I think you will definitely be interested in as a podcast listener. Family Sounds. Have you ever gone to a family reunion and traded stories and laughed with your relatives, and later you thought, gosh, I wish there was some way that we had a way to preserve those stories and preserve those memories when we're not face to face? Well, now you do with Family Sounds. Family Sounds can create an hour-long podcast that's just for you, that's just for your family, that tells the stories of your family and your relatives. And Family Sounds team, they're pros. They've done this before. They have lots of experience crafting stories for public broadcasting through radio and podcasts. They will use your family's voices as well as a professional narrator to tie the story together. Again, the name of the company is Family Sounds, and you can find them at family-sounds.com/books. Again, that is family-sounds.com/books. Family Sounds, your memories, your family in a podcast today. So check them out. family-sounds.com/books. Thanks for listening. That's good advice. So what novels have you read recently that you enjoyed?
Oh my gosh. If you could see my bookcase here, I have 6 shelves, double stacked, and then I have another of paperbacks, and then I have another bookshelf about 4 shelves deep of hardbacks, and I don't know how many books, EPUBs on the computer, EPUBs and Kindles on the computer, yet to be read.
Right.
So, but right now I'm reading it's called the Masada Scroll by Paul Block and Robert Vaughn, and it's an adventure story, kind of along the same lines as the Da Vinci Code and other such type stories. I'm also reading The Tin Collectors by Stephen Cannell. and very enjoying that immensely. Cannell knew how to write books. I've enjoyed every one of his novels. I haven't been disappointed by a single one of his stuff.
Sure. Where can people find you online if they'd like to learn more about you and your novels?
Sure. I have a weekly blog that talks about things that I experience and see and observe in my daily life. And I relate that to writing and my books. And the blog is at stephenbrayton.wordpress.com. I also have a weekly book review at braytonsbookbuzz.wordpress.com. And I have a Facebook page where I put up some daily tidbits, and every now and then I'll put up some promotional material about the books. It's and that's fine. You can look me up on just look me up on Facebook, and then I have an author page on there.
That's great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Stephen Brayton, author of the Mallory Peterson Mystery Series. The latest book in the series, Gamma, will be published later this year. You can now go buy the earlier books in the series. And Stephen, thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you.
Great. Now, stay tuned as Stephen Brayton reads from his novel, Gamma.
Chapter 1. I love airports. Similar to Walmart, the terminal and waiting lounges of an airport offer a large variety of people to observe, all sizes, heights, and shapes, from a variety of countries, cultures, and backgrounds. My name is Mallory Peterson, and on that particular April Saturday, I leaned against a support pillar in the waiting area below the escalators leading to the terminals. From my vantage point, I saw a double row of chairs, backs connected by a bar, the book and gift shop, and the monitors listing flight and departure information. To my left, nearer the entrance doors, I saw the end of the American Airlines ticket counter. Around the corner were the hall to take arriving passengers to baggage claim and the stairs to the skywalk and the parking garage. I went back to people watching. Two men in sport coats looked anxious. Another eyed his watch every 5 seconds like he was late for an appointment. A woman in her early 30s expressed anxiety through nervous fidgeting. A young boy, around 5 years old, wearing a lightweight backpack, played with a toy Corvette on the floor in front of the woman, oblivious to her mood. He showed her jeans and his soft, round face. His tousled light brown hair matched her shoulder-length curls. Something about his face struck a familiar note within me, a resemblance to someone I'd met in the recent past. I shook off the thought and wondered if they were waiting for the husband/father. Behind them, a man stood and walked toward the gift shop. He stopped at a rack of novelty baseball caps that featured logos of local sports teams or the skyline of the city of Des Moines. After perusing the selection, he chose one of the former and approached the cashier counter. If asked, I wouldn't have been able to pinpoint my interest. Maybe his actions seemed unusual, purposeful, not those of a casual tourist. He didn't look like the guy who would buy a cap imprinted with the Des Moines Buccaneers hockey team mascot. I don't know if he indicated an item behind the counter, but upon receiving his change for the cap, he accepted a brown paper sack that looked as if it contained a magazine. He exited the store, donned the cap, and returned to his seat behind the mother and son. The boy looked up at the sound of the paper sack crinkling as the man removed the item. He forgot his toy car and climbed a stand on the chair. He peered over the man's shoulder as the other pulled not a magazine from the sack, but a comic book. It was encased in clear plastic with a white backboard. The cover displayed a larger-than-life green monster, huge fists raised. Its blocky face under messy black hair was pinched in anger. The Incredible Hulk. The boy was so enthralled he almost lost his balance. I was surprised the man's proximity alarm didn't sound with the kid's face not 6 inches from its head. The man replaced the comic into the sack and held it between his knees. I smiled when the boy turned around, plopped down, and slid to the floor. His mother, still in a state of concern, didn't see her son inch under the seat on his stomach. Somehow he didn't snag the backpack on the bottom of the chair. I wondered if the boy planned on taking the sack out of the guy's hands. He didn't have to. The man was distracted by an attractive redhead in yoga pants who walked by, pulling a duffel-sized piece of luggage by an extended handle. The sack slipped from his grasp. Quick as a cobra, the boy snatched the comic, and like a spelunker emerging from a cave, treasure in hand, squirmed out from under the chair. My peripheral vision caught one of the businessmen lurch forward a half step before catching himself. I followed the direction of his attention, right to the boy. The man in the ball cap bent over to retrieve his dropped item, but saw nothing. He whirled around to find the boy standing, sack in hand, fingers reaching to examine his prize. "Hey," he said when he saw the comic in the boy's hand, "give me that." He almost fell over the back of the chair when he grabbed for the comic. The boy, scared and confused at the sudden loud voice of the strangers reaching for him, cried out and ran, away from his mother, toward the hallway leading to baggage claim. His mother bolted upright and yelled after the retreating figure. I started for the boy in the hope of cutting off his panicked flight. When Ballcap Man put his hand inside his jacket, I diverted my path. I hoped he wasn't reaching for a weapon, but the butt of a gun emerged. My gut howled in instant fear. Was he going to shoot a kid? I judged my distance, took 4 steps, jumped to angle my body over the chairs for a side kick to his shoulder. He fell to the floor. I landed beyond the chairs, turned and kicked the wrist of his gun hand. He yelped and the weapon skittered away. I raced after the boy, his mother, and 3 other guys I'd seen standing around the waiting area. They too were after the kid. I passed the mother and caught up with the rearmost man as he slowed to make the turn into the hall. I watched his right foot raise, then with my foot swept it behind his left. He toppled to the floor and I hopped over him, still on the run. The second man heard the commotion behind him, stopped and turned, but I was on him. I drove a knee into his stomach, followed by a downward elbow to the back of his neck. 2 down. The boy ran up the stairs to the doors to the skywalk. The fastest pursuer bounded up 2 steps at a time. The kid couldn't run fast enough. The ache of fear in my stomach moved to my heart when the man grabbed the backpack, but the kid twisted sideways and slipped away. The momentum, however, took the boy to the floor. "Hey!" I yelled and leapt up 3 stairs. He tried to draw a gun from his shoulder holster, but I had speed on my side. I dove and wrapped my arms around his legs. We crashed to the tile. I crawled up his body and planted a knee into his groin. On my feet in a second, I was ready for more, but the man clutched between his legs and rolled away from me, weapon forgotten. The boy, comic book still clutched in his fingers, cowered against the skywalk door. "Come on," I said and offered a hand. "Everything is okay. Let's go find your mom." I pointed to the bodies, but had spoken too soon. Ballcap shoved aside the mother, and 2 more men in dark suits followed close behind him. One aimed his gun and fired off a round. The bullet went high, and I didn't wait around for the second. I grabbed the boy's arm and half-dragged him through the skywalk door. He cried out. Another shot, and the glass spiderwebbed. I pulled the kid again, and he yelped in pain. I stopped and knelt before him. "Listen to me. You have to trust me. We have to get out of here." "Mommy!" "She's okay," I said. I hoped. The boy resisted. I was desperate for an answer short of hauling him over my shoulder. "Did you see how I beat those guys? Kind of like the Hulk." That captured his attention. "Would you like to fly like Superman?" A half smile was enough for me. I picked him up in a fireman's carry and raced on. Okay, so not quite like Superman, but worked.